Welcome to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast, where you get help and guidance through the chaos of parenting a child with anxiety or OCD. This show is for educational purposes and is not intended to replace the guidance of a qualified professional. Here's your host, child therapist, Natasha Daniels.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. Today, we're going to unpack those go-to parenting strategies that most of us use that actually don't work on OCD or can even make it worse. I'm going to tell you what those are and what to do instead. Before we jump into that, I do want to thank NoCD for sponsoring this episode. NoCD offers affordable, effective, convenient therapy. They're available in the US and outside of the US, and you can schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if NoCD is a right fit for you and your child. Just go to treatmyocd.com. That is treatmyocd.com. I will leave a link in the show notes as well. It is also OCD Awareness Week this week, if you're listening to this in real time. And to celebrate that and honor it, I am giving 50% off all of my classes, courses, workshops in my online school. This is the third year that I have done this, and it is a gift that I give to parents who have wanted to get more courses of mine. If you already have some courses, if you have not been able to financially afford a course, I just want that knowledge and education spread and given. And so it's a perfect time to do that during OCD Awareness Week. So if you use the coupon code OCD Awareness Week 2025, that is OCD Awareness Week 2025, all one word. Use that coupon code when you're checking out in my online school at atparentingsurvivalschool.com. You will get 50% off whatever you purchase. This is just for current purchases, not prior purchases. But I hope I have so much in there. So definitely take advantage of that. We only do this once a year. I don't discount my courses because there's so much value and they're already very, very affordable. But I have how to teach kids to crush OCD, how to teach kids to crush anxiety, kids and teen course to crush OCD. I have a space study guide course, which teaches you how to systematically pull back your enabling of anxiety and OCD. I have a difficult behavior course for anxiety and OCD. I have a sleep struggling course related to anxiety and OCD. And then I have, I'm trying to think what else. I have a ton of stuff. I've got a moral OCD course that's a more advanced bonus course for you want to take the foundational one, how to teach kids to crush OCD first. And then I have a bunch of workshops, and they're normally only $25, and then you're going to get 50% off that. So check that out as well. There are a whole bunch. How to support kids in the school environment, how to find the core fear. There are, I believe, 6 or 8. I make so much that I don't even know my own stuff. Check it out, atparentingsurvivalschool.com. I only do this once a year. I don't just say that. That's like legit true. I'm not one of those people who's going to tell you, I only do this once a year. And then like 2 months later, I'm doing it again. No, I do once a year, 50% off of everything. And that's it. Use the coupon code OCD Awareness Week 2025. All right, let's jump into today. OCD is so confusing. And I really feel like the part of OCD that gets tricky as a parent is everything that you intuitively think to do for your child or to help your child is not always what you need to do for OCD. That's where it gets really hard. I feel like that's not necessarily as much with anxiety. It's a little bit, but with OCD in particular, it's a different beast. The things we're going to talk about today do also impact anxiety, but I feel like OCD is a hard nut to crack. So let's just dive into them. I've got 5 of them. We're going to go through them, and then we're going to talk about what to do. And actually, I'm sorry, I have 12 of them. I don't know why I said 5. I was looking at my list, and I didn't realize that it is actually quite long. So I'll try to be brief with each one of them and tell you briefly what it is and what to do instead. So this isn't like the longest podcast you've ever heard. Let's get started. Number 1. Using logic and rational explanations. This is what we do as parents. We talk to our kids. We explain how things work. We problem solve them. When you're doing that with OCD and you say, your hands are not dirty, you're not a bad person, you're You don't need to check that lock again. It's going to be different for each person depending on what the OCD themes are. But when we do that and we try to use logic and rational explanations, the only thing that we do is make our kids feel more stupid because they intellectually, most of them intellectually know that it doesn't make sense. Some kids don't, especially if they're on the spectrum. But OCD, you can have the insight and know this is irrational and still feel like you have to do it. So using logic and rational explanation doesn't work. What does work is educating kids on how OCD works in the brain, educating kids on how OCD makes them get stuck. And it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not, that OCD is going to want them to do it over and over, and how to resist that urge. And it's a strong urge. And this is kind of what I explain in my kids and teen course for OCD. I explain the neuroscience to kids in a very simplistic way. And I use a metaphor of highways and roads. And there's a metaphor in that course also of copper rope and like how thick it gets depending on those neural pathways. So there's a lot of visuals in teaching them that you're not going crazy. Your brain is giving you a signal that says you didn't wash your hands, or you need to check again, or you might be a bad person, whatever it might be. And that really helps them understand what's going on in their brain. Okay, on to number 2. I'm going to go through these rather quickly because there are 12 and I do want to give you all 12. So let's move on. Number 2, giving endless reassurance. This one's a tricky one because we want to reassure our kids. We want to tell them it's going to be okay. We want to tell them that their hands are clean. We want to tell them that they can eat the thing they think is poison. We want to tell them that they are a good person and just a thought isn't going to make them a bad person. We want to do all those things. But OCD is a sneaky little disorder. And when you give them endless reassurance, you're actually compulsing with them. And so you're giving them, you're the metaphorical sink. I often say that because I think that visual instantly makes sense to a parent. They're washing their intrusive thoughts away, not in the physical sink, but in the reassurance that you're giving them. So what do we do with this? Instead of answering it, we educate kids on how reassurance is a compulsion, and compulsive reassurance giving is participating in the compulsion. It doesn't mean that we don't give reassurance. It just means that we give it in a different way. And so we say things like, I'm sorry OCD is trying to get me to talk to it, or I'm sorry OCD wants me to check that for you, or it sounds like OCD is really making you doubt right now. It doesn't mean that we go radio silent, but we don't feed the beast by completing the OCD loop. This is something that you learn in the OCD course on how to teach kids to crush OCD. You learn your part of pulling back that reassurance, which is really, really important. It is also something that you learn in the SPACE program as well. Okay, on to number 3. Consequences and punishments. Now, if you're writing all these down, don't worry. I'm actually going to create a handout for you. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. So in the future, it's already done. I'm going to create a handout. I think I'm going to start doing this for those of you that like physical, like you like note taking or you like a PDF of things. I'm going to create a handout of this. It'll be brief, but it'll just give you the list of the 12 and the do's and the don'ts. So just stay tuned to the end and I'll give you a link where you can get this handout. I just realized that this is a lot of information and I should probably just make this easy for you, especially for those of you that are jogging right now, doing the dishes right now, or your hands are dirty. I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll come up with a link at the end. Okay, so number 3, consequences and punishments. Again, in normal parenting, we might want to help our kids learn by having consequences. If my child, sneaks their electronics and they stay up late and then they're tired, well, the next day, maybe they have to go to bed earlier because it's a natural consequence. It's not even natural. It's actually an enforced consequence of saying, well, this is what happens when now you're really tired. And so now you do have to go to bed earlier because you stayed up late. I try to link it when I'm parenting to it being related. So it's not like I'm going to spank you. I'm not a hitter, or I'm going to take away this candy or something. Like, to me, I want the consequence to be related, if it can be, to the thing I'm trying to teach them, because it's more about teaching and not just being punitive for punitive's sake. But those things don't work when we're talking about OCD. And I'm not talking about difficult behavior. If my child breaks things when they're in an OCD meltdown or they get physically assaultive, there might be some consequences related to that. Like, well, now we have to save up money and you have to pay to replace that thing that you broke. I do feel like, and some people might disagree, and that's okay. You guys can parent, however it feels comfortable for you. But I don't want to have pure chaos in my house. Society isn't going to recognize, they have OCD, so they're having an OCD meltdown. So when they did that, when they took their car and they rammed it into another car, they were just having a really hard time and they were dysregulated. Society's not going to look at it like that. And so I do feel like I have some responsibility to have some guardrails up. And so in my house, at least, physical property damage, and harming other people, going after them, that's never okay. And there are consequences. I'm not punishing people. There'll be some consequences. However, when we say things that are directly related to their anxiety or OCD, like you took a 5-hour shower and you're wasting our water, and now I'm going to punish you for that. And then you think, they're going to take a shorter shower next time. No, OCD is stronger than your consequences. The dire threat that OCD is spoon feeding your child is much more scary. It's scarier and much more powerful than your punishment. You can't punish or consequence anxiety or OCD away. Same thing for anxiety. When I was little, I had so much anxiety, and my mom would say, like, go upstairs and get your shoes. And I remember being so afraid, like somebody's hiding upstairs and they're going to attack me. And I remember she would like scream at me and she threatened to hit me. And so I would run upstairs and get my shoes. But to me, I was like literally running into a burning fire. Like that's how it felt. And it didn't reduce my anxiety. In fact, it made it worse because now I was afraid of my mom and I was afraid of the bad guy upstairs. And so consequences and punishments for the anxiety or OCD, to eradicate the anxiety or OCD, does not work. What does work instead is incentives. And I know that can seem counterintuitive, but building their skills, right? Got plenty of courses on that. Building their skills, teaching them how to talk back to OCD, and not in an argumentative way, because that's actually a mental compulsion that I teach, but learning that this is OCD and it's trying to hook you in and you're not going to fall for it, and doing exposures, which I walk you through in both the kid and the parent class on how to do that. And then, and only then, right? Because you have to skill build before you incentivize. And then you offer bravery points or something else to entice them to use their skills. I do have a podcast. I'm going to link a bunch of podcasts, but I do have a podcast on how to validate versus give reassurance. I'm going to link that one. And I also have one on how to create an effective incentive plan. And I'll link that one too. Okay, that actually goes into number 4, which is, and I kind of already talked about this, but rewards to stop compulsions. Unless you are already giving them the tools and skills to sit with the discomfort, to do exposures and go to the OCD mental gym and learn how to be resilient and not scratch the itch that OCD wants, just rewarding or bribing kids to stop doing compulsions will not work on its own. You have to have the skills attached to it. Okay, number 5, avoidance and accommodation. So helping our kids just avoid events and triggers is not going to change their OCD. In fact, this one will grow it bigger. And that's why learning how you're accommodating the OCD is really important, because accommodating OCD never makes the child better. It always makes them worse. And that's different when we're talking about other neurodivergent conditions or situations. So, in autism, we do accommodate so that they can blossom and create an optimal environment for them. This is not that. We use the word accommodation in a different way when we're talking about this. When you accommodate OCD by tiptoeing around OCD, following OCD's rules, preemptively avoiding things that you think are going to trigger your child, OCD grows bigger. Now, it doesn't mean that we expose them to everything. There is a system to this. It's slow steps. It's small steps. It's building up the resilience one small step at a time. It's not pulling back all your accommodations at once. It's not throwing them in the deep end and getting them to go places and expose them to triggers that they're not ready to tolerate. But it's understanding that that is the ultimate goal. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to go over number 7 through 12. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's time we put help directly in our kids' hands. Introducing Crushing OCD course for kids and teens.
It was way more helpful than all the other therapy we've ever done because we didn't really know what to do. So we weren't really doing it before. So the course helped to figure out what the exposures are and how to do them.
We're not in therapy and find it really hard to find an ERP trained therapist here. So we're currently with like the public health service, but again, they don't seem to be trained in ERP. It's filled that gap that we don't have that was desperately needed.
This was really well timed for us to use between therapists and to help us get off to a good start with this new practice.
It was easy to use. I was able to do it from my phone or also on the computer.
There's different ages, so there were younger kids, there were teenagers, and so that was really nice to have a variety of ages where it wasn't just geared towards younger kids or older kids. It was a nice variety.
It's helpful for our kids to hear it from this third party as opposed to just us saying it.
I really like the offense and defense method. I love working on poking at OCD while it's sleeping. It makes it a little bit easier to do, and it's kind of fun. I'm planning on using it to work on my fear of holding or touching batteries and stuff like that.
So it was really helpful, and I think a lot of other kids would like it. I thought that I was the only one who had worrying about the weather and stuff. And then there was somebody else on there who worried about the same thing, which was really helpful.
Seems less scary to work on stuff now that I've watched this class, and I'm more interested to work on it.
I'm trying to do more exposures still, and before I wasn't, I just didn't want to do them.
I've worked on some of my bigger compulsions and been successful.
I realized that it was helpful to do the exposures. Before it was really, really hard. It's still hard, but it's helpful to know that I need to do them.
Before there would be a lot of battles about it, so it is definitely less loggerheads.
Really, really good course and super helpful.
Definitely would recommend this. It's really easy to follow. It's nice bite-sized videos. I really like the worksheets that go along with it, and I think it's really helpful.
To learn more about this course and register your child or teen, go to atparentingsurvivalschool.com.
Welcome back. All right, let's get through this list. So number 7 is encouraging distraction instead of refocusing. And I actually did a reel on this. I'm making stupid reels lately. If you're not following me on Instagram, you should, because I am obviously over my social anxiety based on the really embarrassing, cringy reels that I'm doing. And I hope that you're appreciating that. And I did a reel where I was OCD and I acted out what distraction looks like versus refocusing. And I think sometimes showing you versus telling you makes more sense. So I will also link that reel. It's a 2-second reel you can watch and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's not semantics. It can sound like semantics, but when you tell your kids, don't think about it. Just, watch TV or go on your iPad or go do a puzzle. Keep your mind busy. Focus on something else. The problem with that messaging is that kids and adults do this too. They're waiting. And actually this happened this morning. My daughter was really anxious about going to school because something's going on at school. And I was trying to reframe her thinking about this because it's actual situation. It's not OCD. And she didn't want me to talk to her about it. She just wanted to watch TikTok and get her mind off of it. And I was telling her, distracting yourself isn't going to rid yourself of the anxiety. In fact, it's going to make it worse because when you're face to face with this problem in a few hours, you're going to really panic because you haven't processed this out. That's different than OCD. OCD, we don't want to process it out. You never want to process with OCD. You want to recognize it's OCD, not process. But when there's this anticipation of, I will keep my mind so busy that OCD will be drowned out and I won't be able to hear it, OCD will get louder. And kids will check, is OCD still there? Dang it, it's still there. Let me distract myself more. Is it still there? Oh my gosh, it's still there. Let me distract myself more. The ultimate goal is not to get rid of intrusive thoughts. It's to, I actually am going to have a YouTube video on this one too. So I do have a YouTube channel, by the way, and I am making this video this week, and this podcast is in the future. And so if you go to my YouTube channel, that video will already be out, but it will be how to handle intrusive thoughts. And spoiler alert, the messaging in that video is going to be, the goal isn't to reduce the intrusive thought. It's to reduce the compulsions and the response to the intrusive thought, and to reduce the discomfort and the angst around the intrusive thought or feeling. That's the ultimate goal. So when we refocus and we say, I'm going to focus my attention on my puzzle, or I'm going to refocus my attention on watching TV, OCD can come with me. And I'm acknowledging that OCD might still give me those thoughts. The goal, the purpose is not to drown out the thoughts. The goal is to say, I'm not going to give you my attention, and you can be loud in my ear, but I'm going to go do the things that I care about, that I love. This is an ACT approach, acceptance, commitment, therapy approach of doing what I value, what I care about. I'm not going to let you slow me down. But my goal is not to check in and see if OCD is still being loud. Okay, so that's number 7. Number 8, forcing confrontation too quickly. And so as parents, we can get either frustrated or overzealous in our approach with our kids. Just touch it. Get it over with. Just don't wash your hands. We can force them to confront OCD too fast and overwhelm them. And we can risk shutting them down when we do that. Because if we're forcing them too quickly, they don't have the skills and the tolerance to handle it. And then they're going to think, you know what? I can't do any exposures. I can't fight back. This is too hard. And we can kind of sabotage therapy, sabotage approaches when we're forcing them to confront OCD or anxiety too much. And that's a judgment call. Okay, number 9 is problem-solving OCD thoughts. This is similar to number 1, using logic and rational explanations, but it's a little bit different. That's why I included it here, because it's very easy to debate or analyze intrusive thoughts with your child, especially when they are disguised as a normal conversation. So we see this with moral OCD. You know, Mom, I was gossiping with my friends today. Am I a bad person? Or when they're worried that they might do something bad. You know, I think I scratched your car on my way out. Can we go look and check together? And no, you didn't scratch my car. Don't worry about it. Or, you know, no, that's not that big of a deal. Or, of course, you can go take a shower. You don't need to ask permission. Or, you know, gossiping isn't a bad thing. And this can be tricky too, because sometimes they'll bring up situations where you do want to parent and you do want to talk about it. But when you talk about it in that moment, you're not talking to your child. You're not educating your child. You're talking to OCD. You're growing OCD. So learning to not debate or analyze intrusive thoughts with your child is really important, and being able to discern, who am I talking to right now? And, this is something I really do want to touch on with them, but I'm going to have to circle back later when they're not being triggered. And later might mean in a few months when they're past this theme. I might have to shelf this for a little while because I'm going to be talking to OCD, not my child. That's really important. I struggle with this all the time with my child. I can tell sometimes we'll get into these philosophical conversations, and I love talking about philosophical conversations, the purpose of life, why are we here, that kind of thing. And my daughter has some existential OCD themes. She struggles sometimes with depersonalization and derealization. And so she's a deep thinker, and she does like to have these conversations, and sometimes we'll have these interesting thoughts. And then sometimes I will see in her eyes this glazed over deer caught in headlights look. And there's a tone to her part of the conversation that is different than when I'm talking to her. And I'm talking to OCD. She's like spiraling. I can tell she's spiraling. And then eventually, sometimes in mid-conversation, I'll say, okay, this isn't helping, is it? I'm not talking to you, am I? I'm talking to your OCD now. And sometimes she'll say, no, you're not. But you need to just tell me this one thing, or there's this urgency now to the conversation. And so it can switch midstream, which is very hard and frustrating. That's why educating yourself, getting that foundational, that's why I make courses. I mean, I'm in course mode today because I'm giving away everything for 50% off. But this is why, like, people just need to be educated. And even if your child's in OCD therapy, you need to be educated on a deep level to understand and discern what these things are and who you're talking to sometimes. The more you know about OCD and all the various disguises and themes, the more likely you are going to be to catch them. And that's the ultimate goal. Okay, number 10, taking over the compulsion. This is very tempting, and most of us do this at some point where maybe you are washing your child for them. You're washing their hair, you're washing their hands, you're checking for them. Can you check to see if my backpack has my homework? Can you check to see if you locked the doors? Can you rewash your hands? Can you fix, my stuffed animal and make sure that it's exactly lined up to my bed? Can you get all the wrinkles out of my bed? Can you, right? Can you check my food? Can you see if this smells weird? We often, and this is kind of similar to enabling, but sometimes we literally take over the compulsion. I have worked with many people in the AT parenting community who are washing their kids' hairs, washing their hairs. That sounded really weird. Their hair, I guess hair, it can be multiple hairs, probably. They're literally doing the compulsion for their child. You taking over the compulsion is, another example would be you standing over them and telling them when it's enough soap, when it's enough washing. Maybe that's a baby step in the right direction, but you even giving them the off switch in their brain isn't teaching them how to ignore the on switch in their brain and to override it. If you are the external off switch, that is still growing OCD. Now, maybe that's your baby step because their hands are raw and you have to start somewhere, but ultimately you're going to want to pull back. So don't take over the compulsions for your child. And if you are, you got to slowly pull that back. Okay, number 11. Comparisons. This is so hard, and I really do struggle with this. Even last night, I was trying to say something to my son, and even as I was saying it, I knew this is not really the best way to teach him. But I was like, both your sisters, they don't do this. We're talking about lying, and I was trying to explain to him that I'm not a mistrusting parent, but when history tells me that I need to doubt somebody, that I am responding to someone's behavior. It's not who I am. But I compared. So trying to avoid saying things like, your sister doesn't do this, why can't you? Which is actually literally what I did last night. And I share that to let you know that we're going to all do some of these things on this list, if not all of them. So be compassionate with yourself. I always try to be compassionate with myself in knowing that no one's going to knock it out of the park and get 100% on any of this stuff. It's so messy. And it's a daily practice. And even in my knowledge of not wanting to do that, there wasn't even this period of not awareness. Sometimes I do things because I just didn't have insight in that moment, or I was so upset or dysregulated myself that things came out of my mouth. I had full awareness last night as I was saying it, that I'm comparing. And I still wanted to do it because I really wanted to get my point across. So sometimes we're going to do things that are on my list. But obviously it's not helpful and ideal. There's a lot of self-hate and self-loathing. And when we compare one child to the other, or a neighbor or a relative to the other, obviously it doesn't help. Okay. And that probably goes across the board. I think that's actually regular parenting as well. Let's move on to number 12, our final one, shame or minimization. And so this looks different. Shame is different than minimizing, but sometimes we can minimize in a cheerleading sort of way. Let's just do that one first because that one's less obvious. And so we can say things like, it's not that hard, or you can do it, or you did it yesterday. And it sounds like cheerleading, but it's minimizing their struggle. And this one's hard because it's not intuitive to maybe say, I know this is hard for you. And I know that you can do it if you got to drop the if you. I was going to say, if you just try hard enough. Minimization's a hard one. It's a slippery slope, and we're going to sometimes mess that one up. But even cheerleading can be minimizing some of the time when we say, you can do this. And all you have to do is throw in, I know this is hard before you say you can do this. That's validating the struggle. sometimes I want to go in and be a cheerleader, and I realize that I'm just not validating it. And sometimes the best thing to do is just say, yes, I'm sorry you're struggling. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Sometimes we want to say things like, but you have this going on, or, you've got a lot of friends, or, you're making progress. And sometimes that over cheerleading turns into actually minimizing their struggle. So we have to be careful with that one. And the shame one's more obvious, but saying things like, this is silly, just stop it. Or your hands are clean, you already washed it. There can be a shame to that because a lot of our kids know that, but they can't stop it. So instead of saying things like that, you can say, I'm sorry OCD is making you doubt right now. Or I'm sorry OCD is making you feel like you have to go back. Or even validating it, you're not the only one that struggled. This is a common struggle with OCD. I do that a lot in our kids support group calls. I often validate. Kids will the kid call and the teen call, a lot of times the kids will say things, they'll preemptively say before they start talking about their problem, they'll say things like, this is really embarrassing and I know it's really stupid, but, and then they'll normally go on to say something that is very common with OCD. And so I will say, it's not stupid and it's not silly. And a lot of people with OCD struggle with that. And as a parent, you can say that to your kids and find a YouTube video that is related to what they're going through. Because I have, I think, over 1,000 kid and teen videos that you can show. They're not for kids and teens. They're for anybody, but they're for the person with OCD. I have one on literally every topic. So find one and say, look, here's another, this lady's talking about it. So it can't be that weird because she's on YouTube and she's talking about it, and look at all the comments underneath, but be careful with that because some of the comments are weird and I don't monitor that. So that was a long list, but a comprehensive list. And I'm going to make you a cheat sheet. I'm not going to go in detail, but I'll make you a list of the 12, briefly say the do's and the don'ts. And I will create a link, and the link will be natashadaniels.com/handout440. This is episode 440. And so it'll be handout 440, natashadaniels.com/handout440. And I think I'm going to start doing that from now on. I hope that you like that idea. I hope that you are enjoying the podcast in general. And if you are, don't forget to hit a star or write a review. That really does help the podcast. And it's the one little thing that you can do to give back, especially if you've been a loyal listener for a while, or if you're new and you're like, holy cow. I don't know why I say holy cow a lot. This podcast is really helpful. So if you write a review, I'll be reading it because I do like to show my gratitude. So I do want to thank Grateful888, who wrote the best. This podcast has been a lifeline for me as my child went through OCD treatment. I listen every week. The knowledge Natasha imparts is invaluable, a voice of both knowledge and support. Thank you. Well, thank you for writing that review. I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad that I was able to be a lifeline for you. That is my ultimate hope, is that I'm like the voice of clinically sound support while sprinkling in some humanity and some interesting conversation and to educate you. That is really OCD Awareness Week. It's OCD Awareness Life in my world. And that is really my goal, is to spread OCD knowledge directly to the source, directly to you as parents. That is my ultimate goal. And so I do appreciate that I am a lifeline for you and your kids. And thank you for writing that review. Maybe if you write a review, I'll be reading yours next time. So don't forget to check out the school sale. It's actually, I forgot to tell you, it's ending on Saturday, October 18th, 2025. So if you're listening to this a few days later, you only have a few days to get it because that coupon code will not work any longer after Saturday, October 18th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. We have to have an expiration date, and that will be the expiration date that it will stop working. So check that out at atparentingsurvivalschool.com. Use the coupon code OCD Awareness Week 2025 and grab the handout, natashadaniels.com/handout440. Don't forget to find the sparkle in everything you do, and I'll talk to you again next Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. To get additional support raising a child with anxiety or OCD, visit Natasha's online school of on-demand classes at atparentingsurvivalschool.com.